welcome to today's episode of our educative series. And today we'll be looking at rains and floods and what you can do to mitigate the occurrence of flooding within your immediate environment. It's that time of the year when we don't expect anything less of high rainfall, and it's also important, just like predictions have it, we shouldn't expect less rainfall this year. And it's important for us to mind certain things within our environment so that we can do well to prevent the occurrence of flooding. I'll talk about how rains become floods and what you can do to more like avoid it. Yes, you can avoid it actually. Yeah, sure. So, yeah, when it rains normally, water is expected to infiltrate the soil or runs off and ultimately ends up in the ocean. However, there are certain things or constraints that have been imposed on the environment that affects this. What happens is flooding occurs when the normal drainage patterns and systems of the environment have been truncated. Hence, water struggle to be channeled down to the canals where it will move down to the rivers and ultimately move down to the oceans. When these patterns have been blocked, then water wells up within the environment, and it wells up, it begins to flood crops, it floods houses, and pose risk to people's property and lives. And it's important that we look at these problems and begin to address them. Although there are natural reasons or natural factors that account for flooding which we might not have any say over, but it's important that the ones that are human induced, we try to address them. Now we'll look at what you can do basically to address the issue of rainfall becoming floods within your immediate environment. There are things that you could do to manage or mitigate the occurrence of flooding within your environment, especially when they are human induced. First, it's important that you kind of create drains within your compound that helps you channel excess water into gutters. So instead of the water flooding the surface of your compound, instead of you experience flooding there, you just create channels through which the water escapes down to the gutters. If you're able to do that, then you would kind of avert the problem of flash floods and the likes. And on the other hand, you could also check out the gutters that are close to you and around you. One problem, particularly with gutters, and which accounts largely for the occurrence of flood within our environment, has to do with the fact that gutters are clogged up. The drains have been clogged up with dirt. So please kind of observe these gutters, observe these drains, identify them, and do well to unclog them, do well to clear the trash off, do well to clear off those clogs, clear off the waste, and allow water flow freely. When these waters flow freely, then the problem of flooding can be largely averted. So please identify gutters that have such problems, identify drains that have such problems, then do well to clear them off. More so within your compound, within your immediate environment, you can manage vegetation. Now, one good thing about vegetation and trees is that they help you to absorb water. Now, rather than the water just flowing on the surface and leaving the environment or perhaps flooding, the vegetation around will help you absorb it. So if you can manage a reasonable vegetation, perhaps a garden, and you have trees around, they would help absorb water, excess water precisely. So in order to secure your buildings or structures, please avoid building structures on floodplains. And that's one thing that is common to quite a number of persons. You see houses on floodplains, you see houses in places that are liable to flooding. That's more like a suicidal attempt. You see houses very close to canals. What happens when the flood comes? What happens when the excess rain comes? So avoid building your houses in floodplains, avoid erecting structures along floodplains or places that are liable to flooding, and you'll be doing yourself a whole lot of good. Lastly, within your community, you can identify this problem, discuss it, and create a proper drainage system. That'll be one good thing. Let it be well structured. Gutters should be well defined and shouldn't be clogged with waste. Then the gutters should link directly to the canals, where from the canals it will be transported, it migrates down to the rivers and ultimately to the ocean. We know that at some point we cannot avoid the occurrence of flooding. However, there are some things we can do, and these are the things I've just said. They are little things, however, they would go a long way if we can put these things to practice. would save ourselves the excesses of, what am I saying again, rainfall and flooding. So it's important actually that we try to put all these things together and avoid the occurrence of flooding, in which case we can actually protect ourselves from. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Thank you so much for listening to the little thing we had to say. Do enjoy the rest of your day, and please do also subscribe to the Lead Impact Initiative on YouTube. Thank you so much. Bye.